What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 197 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week we're chatting UFC 308, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. Really good card, very early card. Breakfast cocktail season will be in full effect. I'm looking forward to it very, very much. But before we dive in, please drop a like, subscribe. It would help us out a lot. I say it every week, but please, guys, help us out. As usual, we're brought to you guys by FightNumbers.com. Amazing site John Kelly's got going on over there. They've got his DFS projections. They've got the live odds screen. They've got the trends tool. They got bets from Ozzy and Pepe. Well worth it. Plus EV to get a subscription there. And for 30% off your first month, you can use the promo code CLUB, CLUB, and you'll get 30% off. So check out FightNumbers.com. Real quick, let's talk last week. I was in attendance, which was pretty cool. Pretty frustrating card betting for me though. I lost 0.45 units, so like it wasn't like horrible, but
right.
I had Anthony Hernandez to win 1.5 units. Obviously, that ended up being great. I had a unit on Sumu Derji plus 187, which I feel like was a pretty good bet. Like if he doesn't get dropped in round 2, he wins the fight. You know, so it was a very, very frustrating bet to lose. I had a unit on Darren Elkins plus 105. Which, by the way, I got to say, I love the damage, but I think he is – I thought that was the worst performance of his career. I mean, he obviously –
That might be the last ride. That might be the last ride.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the last ride for him, I think. I hope so. I would really like to not see him fight again, personally, because it's going to end ugly if he keeps fighting. I also had Matheus Nicolau for a unit of plus 194. I mean, at this point, I'm never betting Nicolau again, honestly. Like, that was, I can't blame him for getting dropped in the third round. You know, he doesn't have a great chin, but losing the first round, landing like 3 strikes, he fights very, very he fights as if he knows his chin is gone. Like that's the truth. And like to lose the first round just because he didn't do anything, well, I mean, that cost him the fight because he won the second round unanimously. So pretty unfortunate. I had a unit on Brad Katona plus 200. That was an awesome fight. John Matsumoto seems like he is the goods, but I thought it was a decent bet at plus 200 anyway. I mean, they played pretty close, but didn't go my way. I had 2.5 units on Melissa Martinez minus 125. That fight played out about how I expected it would, to be honest. Ardeline landed a lot more volume than I thought she would, but I thought, Martinez was going to land the better shots all fight, and she was just a quicker and more dangerous striker. And then the fight that really killed me, I had a unit and a half on the Font under 2.5 plus 185, and Kyler Phillips took him down in round 1, made sure that make that as hard as possible, and then magically gassed 4 minutes into round 1 and just spent the last 2 rounds running for his life from Rob. And then I had a half unit on Phillips ITD plus 230, which was horrible. So, minus 0.45 units for me. Whatever. Hopefully we get it back this week. I like this card. How'd you do last week, Bags?
Only had 2 plays, ended up both being winners as well. So I had a unit and a half on Elkins at plus 100. And then I had a half unit on the Vidal Edwards fight does not go the distance at plus 250.
That was pretty good. Good.
Yep. So finish up 2.75 units. Pretty solid.
Nice. That's a nice week. So let's jump into this. We got first fight of the night. Wow, this is the first fight of the night. Renat Fakhretdinov.
So they actually swapped these around. It was literally, I think, yesterday. They swapped this fight and the Aslan fight around for God knows what reason.
I'm so confused as to what's going on here. I mean, we'll get to the Aslan fight, but that seemed appropriately placed as the opener, right?
Yes.
But Fakhretdinov, Carlos Leal, current price Fakhretdinov minus 250 to come back on Leal plus 210. I don't have any action here yet. I will probably bet Leal eventually, though. I guess I'm not the highest on Leal, and it's kind of funny because I went to tape this when the price was Renat minus 160, and in my head, prior to taping it, I was thinking I'm definitely going to bet Renat at this price. But, man, you go back, you look at this guy's, I thought he was, as you know, I thought he was pretty fraudulent coming into the UFC. Obviously, he dumpstered Brian Battle, which kind of made me a believer, but then you hear Battle was sick. It was his first fight at 170 or his second fight at 170. I kind of feel like that fight's a huge outlier because when you look at his last 2 fights, it's pretty odd how poorly he performed. Like Zaleski, okay, Zaleski's a veteran. I can kind of understand that. But Nick Dalby, I mean, he's also a veteran, but he's not on the level of Zaleski dos Santos. And the concerning thing for me wasn't that he was doing much different than we've seen in the past. It's just how easy it was for Dalby to work up off takedowns. I mean, he was literally just butt scooting the fence and getting up. Like, Renat wasn't pulling the post hand. He wasn't really trying to get height on him. I don't know. I feel like anybody with a decent get up game can get up against him, honestly. Like, that's that. And then on top of which, obviously his cardio is flagged pretty bad the last 2 fights. He's pretty hittable on the feet. I will give him credit. He is a very good wrestler, and he obviously has a lot of power in his hands. So, I mean, I think he can kill anybody on the feet. And I think, he wrestles hard enough, even tired, that he can win fights via optics. But I kind of think that's what he might need here. Because Carlos Leal, I mean, he's got okay takedown defense. I don't think it's great. I do think he's going to get taken down a fair amount of times here. And I think that's kind of like the big uncertainty in this fight. I haven't found almost any tape of him on bottom. I found 2 instances of it. And he looked pretty good working up both times. But obviously, this is a step up in class from those guys. How he'll look is the big question there, because I'm pretty confident we're not going to get takedowns. But I sort of suspect he'll be okay getting up. On the feet, I think his leg kicks, and I think the power of Leal and the durability of Leal gives him a pretty, I don't want to say a large edge, because Renat hits hard, but I do think Leal is a lot more durable. I think he's faster, and I think he's more dangerous of the 2 on the feet. So I guess, like, thinking about how it plays out, I feel like the highest price Renat could really possibly be, hindsight, is probably his current money line. Whereas if it turns out Leal is as competent as I think he is getting off bottom, I think he could end up being like gigantic value and being even down by pick or favorite. So yeah, I understand we're not being a favorite, but like it's hard for me to get past -150 given what we've seen lately. I haven't played Leal yet because it looks like the line looked like it was coming in today, but then it got bet back out. So it looks like it may still go up. And you see with these Abu Dhabi cards, these lines explode out there. But I think Leal, I think the implied probability for Leal is too low here, to be honest. And I'll probably be on him. What do you think, Lags?
Well, I think to the point that you mentioned really is the crux of the fight, and it is, can Leal get up here from a much better wrestler grappler in Fakrdinov? And it's tough to say because of the aforementioned limited tape. I'm inclined to think that Renat should be fine here. Could probably win the early two rounds and be fine in the striking. Like Leal on the feet, definitely better power threat, and definitely more durable. But I think Renat should be fine. Should be able to land takedowns.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's the real variable in this fight, right? So
it is. Yeah.
Moving on, we got Bruno Bandado Silva. He is taking on Ismail Nordav. Current price, Nordav -180. The comeback on Silva +155. What are your thoughts here, Legs?
I'm probably going to bet Bruno Silva in some way, shape, or form. And the reason I say that is because I'm kind of looking at the no scorecards line around -115 for Bruno Silva. I think that's pretty good, mainly because I think his win equity is likely a finish here. I think if this goes long, it's probably not looking good for him because Nordav is probably getting a semblance of grappling going. But to that point alone, I don't think he's a great grappler. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to wash Bruno Silva in that realm. And I think that's why he's, priced accordingly. None of these post-UFC fights for me have really, brought shine to Nordav, in my opinion. I think Bruno should be fine here. Again, more UFC experience. You can point to the 1-5 in his last 6, but look at the level of competition. I mean, Nordav would easily probably be 1-5, if not 0-6 against those guys. So I think Bruno Silva is an easy spot.
First of all, Glenbot asked about Leal decision. I don't know what
that
price
is.
Leal by this
+450 on Bet Online.
Oh, that sucks. I if it was like +700, I'd be interested, but
yeah,
I don't like
I mean, you could probably get like a split like that though.
Meh.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean.
In terms of Ismail Nordav, appreciate it, Dan. In terms of this fight, I don't know, man. Like,
I don't know.
I understand where you're coming from. What?
Defending myself in court, I appreciate it, Dan. But, I don't. Go ahead.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think Bruno, his body's breaking down.
Yeah, and he's definitely looking regressed. I won't.
The thing is, there's a couple fights in there in this recent run that are forgivable. Obviously, getting knocked out by Brendan Allen, like, who cares? We'll talk about Shara in a bit, but that was a pretty terrible matchup for him. Even though I do think Shara's. Well, I mean, everybody thinks Shara is overrated, so maybe he's not overrated anymore. But I do think, that was a bad matchup for him. But, like, you look at the Gerald Mearshart fight where Mearshart just pieced him up and easily, kind of outmaneuvered him at distance. And then you look at the Weidman fight where Weidman outstruck him.
Yeah.
I just feel like he's at the end of the line here, and he's taken – it seems like since the Alex Pereira fight – he really hasn't been, the same guy. Tristan did say Ishmael is too small for 185, but he might be. But I do think, look, my thing with Nordav is I think Nordav is pretty skilled. I think he's a fairly good striker. I think he's a fairly good wrestler too. There's something off with him, and I can't put my finger on it. It just seems like he's a tremendous hammer and a terrible nail, which would be an argument for Silva, to be honest. And to your point, Silva is the more experienced fighter. He's fought a much better level of competition. I'm just trying to do less of catching a falling knife these days. I got burned a lot by that the last year and a half. It just rarely works out well. And I kind of think Silva's on the back end. I feel like Nordav can probably outmaneuver him on the feet, but if he has to, I kind of just think he can get takedowns for free here if he wants them.
Okay.
So with that dynamic, it's just like, I understand the Silva shot. I don't want to take a risk on a guy that I think is really far past it at this point.
Fair enough.
Moving on, we have got Farid Basharat taking on Victor Hugo. Farid Basharat, I believe. Oh, no, he's not the biggest favorite on the card. We got another one of those next. Yeah. Farid Basharat minus 650. The comeback on Hugo plus 475. I mean, maybe it's a little wide. Hugo's a dangerous-ish finisher, hits hard, but I think Farid is probably top 10 to 15 at 135. I think Hugo is lower tier in the UFC, despite the performance last time out, which was impressive in his debut, to be honest. But I just think Farid's wrestling is way too good for Hugo. Maybe Hugo could hit like a Mimi sub, like a knee bar or something, but Farid seems pretty hip, man, to jiu-jitsu. I know he almost got subbed by Blackshear, but like, Blackshear's a really good grappler. He's a Henzo black belt. And, I mean, at the end of the day, Farid won that fight pretty clean. So, yeah, I mean, look, if Hugo can keep this upright, I think he could knock Farid out. I think he could hurt him, potentially even win the strike. I would favor Farid striking too, but he could win the striking. But I really can't picture him keeping this upright. I don't think he's got better takedown defense than Taylor Lapilus. I think that was a much tougher fight for Farid, and he looked, in my opinion, like minus 400 in that fight. So, I don't really have any interest in taking the dog flyer on Hugo. I would look to the over, but also Hugo gets tired, so I don't really want to bet over GTD and then have Farid tap it out and exhausted Hugo 9 minutes into the fight.
Yeah.
I lean Farid. What do you think?
No, completely similar. I think Farid can land takedowns pretty easily here, and to your point there, I think he probably can get a late sub because I think there is a large cardio discrepancy here.
Yeah, I totally agree. Moving on, Kennedy and Chukwu. He's taking on Chris Barnett. This is the biggest favorite of the card, Kennedy and Chukwu. Yeah. We know what happened the last time this happened. Current price, Kennedy is Kennedy at OSP, which lured people. I mean, will Barnett win this fight, and then people are going to be backing Chris Barnett at plus 250 against a top 10 guy? Who knows? But Kennedy's minus 900. Barnett's plus 650. What do you think here? Does Barnett have a chance to pull the upset?
No, I don't. And I don't even, to your point, you were talking about this a little bit earlier in the week, was the over 1.5. And I just can't, bet on bad fighters to survive really. And I think ultimately that's what Chris Barnett is. People love to talk about his antics, this and that, but the guy's a very low level fighter at the end of the day. Kennedy should have minimal issue.
Yeah, it's really aids to have had minus 260 on Tafa, and now it's like minus 900 Kennedy. And I heard some people being like, "Oh man, all those Tafa tickets, bet you're happy now." It's like I would lay minus 350 on him tomorrow. I really do not give a shit how that fight went. I'm with you on Barnett. The issue is I've been looking at over and I've been considering it because I think Kennedy doesn't hit that hard, and he has dragged some corpses lately to decision. My big concern, though, is, I mean, they know the game plan here. They know this guy can't grapple at all. And you would say, oh, maybe Kennedy's not going to grapple, except the last time he had this kind of grappling at just Carl Roberson, and he mauled him for 3 rounds. And that is my concern with taking over plus 120 shot is I think takedowns will be free if he wants them, and I think if he gets on top of Barnett, he's probably going to finish him. So it's just hard to do business with an over there. In terms of the fight, I have no interest in Barnett. Kennedy, he has been fragile at times in his career, but I think this is, Kennedy, honestly, this is the kind of move up to heavyweight that could work out well for him. Kennedy's got a huge frame, huge reach, probably was killing himself to make weight. I think he's going to take care of business without.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Just on Bet Online right now, Kennedy subs plus 550.
That's not horrible, honestly. He did.
You might get like 7-1 on FanDuel.
I think he subbed Devin Clark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not horrible. And that is there, So yeah, but I have no interest in we don't need to talk about this fight further. Abbas Magomedov taking on Bruno Ferreira. I had played Abbas to win 2 units at -132. I have some concerns about Abbas and about my bet just because, or Abbas, whatever. I don't know how the hell you pronounce it.
Abbas, yeah.
Whatever. German, Russian. It gets
the bus.
Yeah. I have some concerns in that Bruno's obviously very live to put anyone's lights out early in a fight. And I think in the early portion of this fight, it's going to be pretty tough for Abbas to control him, even if he tries to grapple him, just because Bruno is so strong and so explosive. So that's moderately concerning because he does counter reasonably well while he's fresh. The thing is, and the reason I ultimately decided to play Abbas is I think Abbas measures distance pretty well. He's got a big height and a big reach advantage here. Abbas has a 78-inch reach. I think Bruno's like 71 inches or something.
72, yeah. He's got 6-inch reach.
And Abbas is as fast as him, in my opinion, which is kind of, or maybe even faster. Abbas fought Kaio, and he didn't really seem all that daunted by the speed. So I do think if Abbas minds his P's and Q's here, he should be able to outstrike him fairly easily. I especially think, the teeps he throws up the middle should be pretty effective against Bruno. But ultimately, the reason I'm on Abbas, and even though I know Abbas has had cardio issues himself, I think as the fight starts to slow down and Bruno kind of starts to lose energy a bit, I think the takedowns are going to come pretty easy, and I think control will come pretty easy too at that point. Bruno is just, his getup is just explode. That's his method of getting up, and I don't think he's going to have more than like 3 minutes of that in him. So the way I'm looking at it, I don't want to say Bruno can't win a decision. That's a stupid thing to say. He could off moments. He hits hard. But I think Bruno just expends too much energy to be really confident in him doing anything with any degree of efficacy past 4 minutes. And at the end of the day, I don't think he's that. I think Abbas is just a massively more technical than him. But it should be competitive early, I think. It's even possible you could make the argument to play Abbas live over pre. I just feel like Abbas is dangerous enough early that I'm okay being in pre because I don't really want to miss it. But plus, I'm pot committed to fading Bruno Ferreira since I bet Phil Hawes. So that's where I am.
Justice for Phil Hawes.
Justice for Phil Hawes here. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Love it.
But yeah, look, Bruno can knock him out early. If he doesn't do that, though, I think Abbas is the more skilled fighter anyway. I think Abbas should be about -170 here, in my opinion. So I'm on him to win 2 units. What do you think, Lex?
So I'm probably going to play him to win a unit. And originally I wasn't going to your mention to the early portion of this fight. I don't think he's going to have a ton of success wrestling and holding down Bruno. But the more I think about it in the back half of the fight, also to your point of him landing takedowns, I think the distance striking in the back half, I think it's going to be free for him to land those kicks. It should be very easy for him to read Bruno's strikes coming in.
Well, that's the thing, rounds. Right? I feel like if he doesn't engage in the pocket, the kick should be free. Really?
Yeah, even in the first round. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Moving on. I do have a bet here. I know you're gonna have one, so I'll throw it to you first. We got Mateusz Rebecky. He's taking on Miktabek Oralbay. Current price Oralbay -310. The comeback on Rebecky +260. What do you think here?
So I'm going to have a unit on Rebecky here, and this is coming from a guy who had Oralbay -240 against Brenner, who, in my opinion, is a much worse matchup than Rebecky. Brenner, in my opinion, a huge liability on the feet, can easily be taken down, doesn't have great cardio either, and that wasn't an easy fight for Oralbay by any means. And Rebecky, totally gassed out, totally redlined in his last fight against CDF. But I mean, almost got the finish in that first round. And to me, obviously, the market is massively overcorrecting from that fight. I mean, we saw him, again, massively gas out, lose the second, third rounds there, and now he's a plus 240 dog and climbing to Oralbay, where I just think it's going to be tough for Oralbay to control Rebecky early in the fight. I think standing, Rebecky throws heat. He's super hittable as well. But I just think while they're standing, I don't think Oralbay's standing is anything special. The guy hits hard, but it's not very technical either. I think he's there to be cracked. I think early portions of this fight is going to be pretty competitive. And I just don't think the cardio gap is as big as people are based on that last fight.
Yeah, I think there is a decent amount of recency bias being built into this fight.
Yeah.
To your point, I mean, I bet CDF at plus 300 against Rebecky in his last fight, in part because, and no one's talking about this. They're just talking about him looking like shit against CDF.
He was a great boxer. CDF.
Dude, and he's literally made a career off of out-scrambling elite wrestlers and pacing them. Like, that is literally his bread and butter. Is his jiu-jitsu is too good to hold him down, and when he's on the feet, he just fires volume at you. Like, he landed 126 significant strikes, I believe, against Rebecky. Oralbay's not landing that many strikes this fight. I'm like very, very confident. And yeah, I mean, the optics of the end of that fight were hideous for Oralbay. Like, don't get me wrong. I have nothing
Rebecky.
good to say, or Rebecky, yeah, about how it looked. It was pretty ugly, but it was just a horrible matchup for him. And it's like one of those things where you're not winning on the feet, so you're trying to wrestle harder and harder on the back end, and it's having no effect, and you're taking tons of damage all the while. I forgive him a bit. I don't really think Rebecky has... I don't think he has great cardio by any means, but I'm pretty certain he's 3-0 in decisions in his career. He's finished fights in the third round multiple times. Like, I'm pretty certain the cardio is not as bad as it looked in that fight. Oralbay's a great prospect. I mean, honestly, I think he's a very, very good prospect. He's 26. He's obviously a very capable wrestler. I think he can scramble pretty well on the feet. You know, he keeps his stuff straight, got a decent 1-2, but he's pretty low volume. If you get inside his reach, he's very easy to hit. He's not super fast. And to your point, you know, you watch the Brenner fight, and like, he took care of business. I think he covered his line. I do. But I also feel like, you know, I've heard, you know, he's going to pace Rebecky here on cardio. Brenner was gassed out 7 minutes into that fight, like horribly gassed. And he needed to knock him down with him second left in round 3 to win the round and avoid a draw, you know. And Brenner, dead gas, still landed 3 takedowns, I think, and was scrambling with him. And so, like, I look at this fight, and I do think, I mean, Rebecky's 32, Oralbay's 26. I think upside long-term, Oralbay's got a much higher ceiling than Rebecky does. But in terms of this fight, I feel like I think either guy can get takedowns, to be honest. I don't think it's likely either guy is holding the other down, though. And so I think it's very possible that it could play out for a fair amount of time on the feet here. And yeah, I mean, he throws straighter shots, but man, Rebecky is so much faster and he hits so much harder, and he's more experienced and he's fought better guys. I'm just like, how can this price be right? You know, if you want to tell me you think the Rebecky cardio stuff was scary enough that, like, okay, you got to trust Oralbay down the stretch, that's fine. I don't take much issue with it. You want to tell me Oralbay minus 150 to minus 185? I mean, I think that's fine. I'm not sure I would even price it there, but I think that's fine. But the amount of power and KO equity Rebecky has here versus his line is insane. Like, I think for the line to be right, you really have to think Oralbay's holding Rebecky down. I feel like pretty confident he's not. You know, even when Rebecky was dead gassed, he was doing a very good job of, you know, getting back to his guard, getting the positions to get up against CDF. And CDF's probably a better grappler than Oralbay at this point in their careers, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, I think the line's very wide. I have 2 units on Rebecky plus 241. I think the line is nuts. Luke asked, what do you think about the over? What is the over here?
It's 2.5, and I believe it's like slight plus money to the over, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. What do you think? I don't really feel strongly about that.
Well, now it's minus 125 to the over 2.5. No, I really don't either. Because I think if you like over, you more or less like Oralbay.
I kind of lean the other way, honestly, because like, I mean, Rebecky throws howitzers, and obviously if he gasses, he's in danger of getting finished. But like, you watch the Loic fight, and the amount of punishment this guy does on the feet is just like insane if he's getting off on his game. And I think Oralbay hits pretty hard, to be honest. I do. You know, I don't think he's the highest volume, but he's got some pop in his shots. So I don't know. I probably won't have a total. I'm happy to take the shot on Rebecky. Oralbay's a great prospect. Obviously, won't be shocked if he wins, but I do think too much of that ugly fight last fight is getting baked into this price right now. Moving on, we have Jeff Hands of Steel Neal taking on the ageless one, Rafael Dos Anjos. Current price Neal minus 280. Comeback Dos Anjos plus 240. Give me your thoughts. What do you got here?
Kind of a simple one for me, not really picking a side. I like GTD minus 135. I don't think there's a ton of finishing equity here. I think mostly you're fading a Neal KO or RDA subbing him, but I personally don't think RDA is going to have a ton of grappling success here. Could have some clinch success here against Neal, but I think Neal's, again, going to be landing the much harder shots on the feet. This should be, I think, a Neal decision, in my opinion. I can see it being close, though, if it goes 15.
If RDA wasn't older than, like, my father, I would, like, bet him here, honestly. Like, it's kind of a weird fight because, you know, obviously he's very old. I'm with you. I don't think he's going to have much success grappling Neal. I think the fact that he's 39 means his downside and potential slippage in his game is like pretty fucking high in this fight. And obviously Neal's got very, very fast hands on the feet and hits probably harder than like anybody RDA's fought in recent years. So, I mean, all of those are pretty concerning. What I will say is, Glenn Botcher said his 40th birthday is on Saturday. What I will say is,
oh, I didn't know that. Damn.
Do think
me and RDA.
I do think sneakily there is a fair amount of leg kick upside or calf kick upside on the RDA side. He hasn't fought a southpaw in a long time, and people forget, you know, how hard RDA throws leg kicks. And now he's got a guy in Neal there, and it's like, well, what if RDA just smashes his calf to bits, and then you're sitting there with Jeff Neal at the 8-minute mark, tired because he does gas, he does slow down, tired and on one leg with RDA in front of him. Like, that could look like a nightmare. That could look like a very real nightmare if you're laying the chalk on Jeff Neal. And I think that's enough for me to want nothing to do with Neal, because Neal doesn't have any grappling upside himself. You know, you're just kind of relying on age and speed, which I get. I do understand. But I'm with you kind of on the goes the distance, though. Neal could knock RDA out here for sure. I struggle to see RDA finishing Neal, though. Maybe past 10, like even 10%. Who's the last guy RDA finished, honestly? Like Kevin Lee?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Kevin Lee?
Barbarena.
Nope.
Without even looking, Barbarena. But that doesn't,
who cares?
That's a cupcake matchup. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Minus 400, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is I feel like he has very, very little finishing equity against Neal here. I think the question is just how much do you price Neal's finishing equity? I think it should be like reasonably high, you know, like maybe 30%, maybe 25%. But I can't get to like 40 to 50% against Hoffa. Yeah, I kind of like the goes the distance as well here, especially at that minus 135.
Well, I was going to say real quick there, they have Neal ITD at plus 160.
I think that's even wide. What's Neal decision?
Ooh, let me look it up for you. DK has that at plus 130.
Oh, fuck that. Oh, what is that hold? They're giving us 40% on the ITD and 45% on him to win a decision? He's 280. Like, what the fuck is that? That is crazy.
He's actually 3-1 on DraftKings.
Even so, man.
I know.
All right. That's absurd. But yeah, I have no interest in plus 130. Moving on, we have Shara Bullet taking on Armin Petrosian. Current price, the one-eyed monster, minus 158. Oh, nope. Hold on. We'll pull it back here a second. We got Ivo Aslan taking on Rafael Cerquera. Skipped over this one. Current price, Aslan minus 120. Oh, nope. It's Cerquera minus 115. The comeback on Aslan minus 105. I don't really. I don't know. When I first taped Cera, there's only like 2 fights of his that I could find. I don't know about you, but there's not much
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
same.
Some highlight videos, but not really a whole lot. I wasn't really very impressed with his striking. He seemed kind of tentative to me. He didn't seem to like power when he had to deal with it. And obviously, Aslan, big physical guy, very fast, cracks hard, has won a UFC fight in the 3rd round, has fought better competition. I was pretty interested in betting Aslan at like the pick'em price he was at. Then I found out a little later in the week that Cera's main training partner is Jonathan Almeida. Now, maybe that means nothing, and Aslan runs through him, but I know Ivo Aslan on bottom is quite poor. That a lot of people bet Turkali against him because he was quite poor on bottom. And that is, if he's your like best friend and main training partner, I mean, surely this guy can grapple. Maybe he can't, but that is enough of a red flag that it's like, I don't want to bet Ivo Aslan at pick'em and his true price be plus 300, which is the kind of shit it could be. He doesn't even need to be anywhere near as good as Jalton to dominate this fight if he's like a plus grappler, So I'm passing it. I lean the Evo side just because I feel like we have more known data points, and I don't think this guy's a great striker. But that, that variable there is kind of freaky to me, and so I'm avoiding it. What do you think?
Well, for you almost skipping the fight, I think it's, pretty on par, because this fight, in my opinion, is a pretty skippable fight. Probably should have been the first fight of the night for that reason. Like, to me, this is 2 guys who have pretty big power, and it's almost going to be a staring contest, in my opinion. I think it's going to be pretty low volume. And to your point, I would favor Aslan. The overall experience of the guy, and I mean, honestly, that's pretty much it. I think it's pretty low level in general.
It's a pretty high volatility fight, to be honest.
100%. And I think that's why I want no part.
That. Yeah, the market, the pick'em is basically saying that we don't know what the fuck to line this fight. So,
right, which is why I'm fine with not even
same
anywhere near. No,
because I don't know how the fuck to line it either, to be honest. So, but that takes us to the main card. Shara Magomedov taking on Armin Petrosyan. Current price, Shara is minus 158. The comeback on Armin is plus 138. What are your thoughts here, Lex?
Well, are you taking a shot bet, first of all? Are we talking about that?
Take the shot bet.
Take the shot bet. All right. Not that. So we'll start off with that. So not that I have any money on Shara, and I know you have a strong take on Armin here, but to me, I just think that Shara is likely going to be the faster of the 2. I think he can probably land a bit more volume, and I think he's more lethal of a finisher of the 2.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with all of that, to be honest.
And that's fine. And that's fine.
I mean, look, a lot of people are betting Armin, so he may be mushed, and maybe this is a square read. I fully acknowledge that, but like I have 4 units on him at plus 150. I'm sending it big on Armin here. I don't even think Shara is a fraud, and I hate how people keep talking about it like, oh, he's a fraud. It's like, well,
he's a bad grappler. Yeah,
he's very good at what he's good at. Like, he's a very good kicker. He's got very good footwork. Has some nasty elbows and knees inside if you overextend against him, but he's a pretty poor boxer. He's pretty poor defensively, and yeah, he's a bad grappler. How much of that can Armin exploit? That's an open question. But I do think Shara, he has shown elements in his game that are pretty good. What I will say is, I think, Bruno, like, who cares about the Trockley fight? That was a week's notice, and Antonio Trockley is going to be out of the UFC in a fight or 2. So it's kind of irrelevant. But, I mean, if you wanted to build 2 fighters in a lab to give Shara a decent reputation and have him win, they would be Bruno Silva and Mikhail Lasejic. I mean, both guys are rote boxers who are okay footwork, not great footwork, and have no kicking game at all, who need to pressure forward and can't really deal with his movement. You saw him take advantage of those guys. I mean, and we touched on Bruno being potentially shot earlier in this. But, Bruno had big moments in that fight. Even though he lost the fight, he had a couple really big moments against Shara, despite Shara's movement. McCall had a couple moments too in that fight, and I mean, in my opinion, those guys pale in comparison to Armin Petrosyan as a striker. I mean, the truth of the matter is Armin's got his own issues. He can't grapple either, obviously. I do think of the 2 here, he's the more likely to grapple, but anyone that's like, oh, Armin should shoot, I don't want him fucking wasting his time or energy trying to grapple Shara. That seems pretty, like, what is he going to, I mean, maybe get the half guard. Yeah. No, I think it would be very dumb for him to shoot against him. What I will say is, though, I mean, they both come from Muay Thai striking backgrounds. Armin has a much more decorated Muay Thai background than Shara does. He's like a multiple-time world champion and the IMFA, I believe. You know, he's like a Russian national silver medalist in Muay Thai. Obviously, he's fought the far higher level of competition in the UFC. I mean, he doubled up RoboCop on strikes, doubled up AJ Dobson on strikes, just beat Chris Duncan. I just feel Christian Leroy Duncan, who, in my opinion, posed more threats than Shara. Like, I look at this fight, and the question to me is, can Arman slow the mobility or keep up with it at all? And I think yes. I mean, Arman's a really good kicker himself. Obviously, Shara is known for being a kicker, but Arman's an elite kicker too. And Shara hasn't fought somebody who can stay in the center of the cage, throw low kicks, throw body kicks, where he doesn't get to just move for free. And I think that's what you're going to see here. Like, I would be shocked if Arman Petrosyan is following Shara around the cage in the same way that McCall was and the same way Bruno Silva was. It's just not his game, and he actually has tools to dictate exchanges where he wants them. And if he can actually force him into pocket exchanges, Arman's the much better boxer. Like, it is not even a little close. Better jab, better footwork, better hands all around, faster hands, way better head movement. Like, no one talks about it. Shara's defense at distance is under 50% so far in the UFC. That is like heinously bad. Whereas Arman's is at like 62% at distance. Like, the difference in defensive efficacy between these two is just gigantic. Even with regard to finishing, I do tend to agree with you. I think Shara throws more critical stuff than Arman does, like with the knees and elbows and stuff that he throws. But I think Arman's got more dangerous hands. I mean, we saw Arman rock Christian Duncan. We saw him rock RoboCop multiple times. I mean, the dude can crack. He had like all six of his regional wins were won by KO. I just look at it and I'm like, I see two guys with the exact same striking metrics at distance in terms of landed and absorbed. One of them has fought a way higher level of competition. That one is also the more decorated striker. That one also has the more complete MMA game. And then the guy on the other side has one fucking eye. You know, I know he's a good Muay Thai fighter, but like, you're talking about like a lethal, like a guy who is like a multiple-time world champion in Muay Thai who is fighting a guy with one eye. I'm obviously half kidding about that. Obviously, Shara showed he can mitigate that a fair amount. But to me, I think it's going to be a close fight. Honestly, I'm not saying like I'm saying all this to like about why I like Arman. I think it's going to be close, but I just favor Arman outright here. I think he should be in the minus 125 to minus 140 range. I think his volume. I disagree with you completely on the volume. I think his volume is going to be a lot more reliable than Chara's is personally. And yeah, I think he's going to land way more head strikes than Shara does, which, as we know, judges tend to score head strikes. Both of these guys undefeated in the Middle East too, for what it's worth. Someone's got to go down.
John, second shot bet here. How about this? No matter the winner or loser, the winner of the significant strikes.
Yeah, fine.
How about that? All right.
Yeah, I'm in. That's fine. I get that's if you're gonna let me get you drunk on stream for free, that's fine.
Fine by me too. Listen, John, I'm fully obliged. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Arman has faced so many grapplers. He has taken something away from that. I don't know, maybe. I actually think Arman can grapple him a bit, but like I said, I don't really see
how meaningful is it going to be. Yeah,
like, yeah. I mean, even if he can hold him down, it's like if Arman comes out shooting takedowns, he's never gassed in his career, but using that kind of energy to come in with a proactive wrestling game plan in a super hot arena, like it's gonna be out there. That could sap you. I would rather lose my bet from just being wrong about the striking than Arman deciding he's now a grappler and gassing himself out and getting finished on the back end. You know, like that's.
If anything, what you would want is him maybe like going for a takedown or two in the third round, maybe where he has like a slight cardio edge here. Yeah.
That's true. Tristan did mention Shara's one aura. Shara does win the aura game here. Arman is like oatmeal. Shara's got a lot of aura. He's a movie star now, you know. But I'm fading aura. That's what I'm doing.
How about it?
I mean, Shara's wrestling is terrible. It is terrible, but it's. I just don't think that's the path for Arman. I think it's going to be a great fight, though. Honestly, it's not the coolest fight on this card. There's actually a lot of cool fights on this card, but I think it's going to be. I would be a little surprised if someone blew out the other. I think it's going to play really close. I just lean the Arman side here.
They both used to train together.
Did they?
Yeah, that came out today. Yeah.
Yeah, Arman probably taught him how to kick. He's coming for blood. Moving on. We got Lerone Murphy taking out Dan Ige. Current price on Murphy is minus. That's a big price, Jesus. Minus 265. The comeback on Ige is plus 225. Man, I mean, I think Murphy's going to win the fight, but this is like
Right.
a huge price.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, they're both good fighters. They're both pretty tough, fairly durable. I trust Murphy's volume a bit more than I trust Ige's volume. I thought Murphy's last fight was incredibly impressive against Edson, but also I don't want to put too much stock in it because Edson seemed like he was out of gas at the 8-minute mark and just wasn't even really throwing offense back the last 3 rounds. Actually, kind of bearish that Murphy didn't finish him down the stretch of that fight, to be honest. But I mean, Murphy's a solid fighter, and he tends to outvolume all of his opponents. He's got 2 inches of height here, 2 inches of reach. Ige, on the other side of things, I think he's the more dangerous striker of the two. He hits harder, in my opinion. He's probably, I don't know, who do you think is faster?
Oh, I'd say Ige.
Yeah,
like
I
if
think
if they're throwing hands, I would say Ige. But yeah, to your point again, Ige probably bigger hitter, but Lerone more reliable volume.
Yeah, that's my thing. Because like Ige, you look at him and he's rarely like out voluming anybody comfortably, whereas Lerone is out voluming everybody. I think both guys probably have a little bit of wrestling upside, but I think I trust Lerone's a little bit more. Yeah, I've seen a few people be like, "There's a wrestling path for Ige." It's like
I disagree. I think Lerone, but I don't think it's going to be super meaningful. Again, to like the point where we were talking about in the last fight, like I think maybe 1 or 2 takedowns, maybe a few minutes.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is it's like I think Lerone could get a couple takedowns, but like Movsar had a hard time holding him down. Bryce Mitchell had some issues with him. I really don't think Lerone's going to control him the way he did Kulabau in this fight. Yeah, I mean, Lerone. The funny thing is, I was going to say Lerone's younger, but they're the exact same age, the two of these guys. They're both 33. I do think Lerone may still be improving. Like, we've seen some nice elements added to his game, but like, dude, minus 260. Like, I kind of think Ige is the more likely one to win by knockout or to drop the other. Ige's durable as fuck, and he throws hard as shit. Lerone seems like he's durable, but he's been hurt before, in a couple fights. I mean, I don't want to bet Ige because I really do think he's going to lose this fight. I think the volume's just going to be too much, but I also feel like this is like fucking crazy price-wise, Like, how often do you get the more durable guy who's faster with more power, who's not giving up like a huge grappling edge, and they're plus 230? I mean,
I guess my only counter to that, and I guess where I'll start my breakdown is I just think he's big moment reliant, which I guess you pointed to a bit.
I agree.
You touched on the low volume nature, does probably need that KO. I mean, even just going off the top of my head, like what's the last decision he won outside of the Landwehr fight, which honestly he probably could have knocked him out and probably should have knocked him out.
He did fight the Mitchell fight was close, honestly, and it went to a decision. But yeah, I mean, most of his wins are coming by KO. I mean, that's the truth. So,
I mean, his last decision win was the split against Edson in 2020,
which he did not deserve to get, in my
opinion.
opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I take your point. I mean, I don't like you guys know I don't mind betting on value losers. I'm fine with it, but I really don't feel good about it, to be honest. Like, there's a part of my brain that's like, how are you not betting Dan Ige at this price? And then there's part of my brain that's like, he's gonna lose. Lerone is better. Like, why are you throwing your money away?
Yep. No, completely get it.
Do you have anything else you want to say on it?
The only other thing I was going to say is, I mean, it's Lerone decision, probably or nothing. Like, if you like the Lerone side, like, there's almost no justification money line wise, in my opinion.
Dude, did you see what the over is here? It's fucking crazy. Minus 400. It's minus 400. That's absurd. That's absurd. I mean, that's crazy. That's completely crazy. I do not understand.
But do you think Ige is that likely to get finished though? Because if not, I don't think it. I mean,
I don't think that likely, but like Ige is right. So this is the other thing, man. Like, Ige's got a better ITD line, and he's a plus 250 dog in a fight that's like that makes no sense.
His no scorecard, just pick him.
And he's plus 250. Like the market's saying what we're saying here, you know?
Right.
Except the money line price seems crazy. I don't understand it. I don't want to do it though. You know how this goes. I'm going to eventually get to a bet when I tweet everything out Saturday morning, and it's going to lose 30-27, and it'll probably be what leads me to lose money on the card, and I'll be sitting here next week like, why the fuck did I bet Dan Ige? You know, but anyway, we move on. Curious if you're taking the dog shot here. I see a lot of people in the community are. We got Magomed Ankalaev. He's taking on Alexander Rakic. Current price, Ankalaev, pretty big favorite here. He's minus 385. The comeback on Rakic is plus 310. What do you think?
I'm not going to take the shot here, first of all. To me, I just think it's going to likely be a boring fight on the feet. I think it goes the distance. I played GTD minus 160. I think with the open stance, I think everybody's going to talk about the leg kicks, obviously, with the Rakic, but it is open stance here with Ankalaev. So, I mean, obviously, I think he can have success, but not as much as you would expect. I don't think he's going to have much wrestling success at all trying to get Ankalaev down. Not that I think Ankalaev is going to have any success wrestling him. Rakic just isn't a guy that does a ton for me on the feet. Yeah. And that's where it comes down to. So I think he survives, though. I don't think he gets finished. I mean, Ankalaev's not a guy to really step into the fire, really. He's fine coasting. So I like GTD. What do you think?
I don't mind GTD either, to be honest. I understand why there is a great desire to bet Alexander Rakic here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really share that desire. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a very good fighter. Mm-hmm. But I also think he's less than the sum of his parts, if that makes sense. There's just like something missing there. Yeah. Like he's got good hands. He's got great kicks. He's a pretty good wrestler. The Jerry fight really just bothers me, honestly, because he was battering him, and like all he really had to do was keep his composure in that fight, and he couldn't do that, and he just completely collapsed and got finished. Mm-hmm. And I look at this fight, and I feel like I think Ankalaev's the much better boxer, personally, of the two. You know, I think he counters very, very well. I think his hands are a lot faster than Alex's are. And I think where Alex could potentially have the most success is with leg kicks. The problem is it's opposite stances. And I think him kicking inside on Ankalaev is going to, if he does that a lot, he's going to open up a lot of opportunities for Ankalaev to counter him here and potentially hurt him there. You know, I guess that another argument to the contrary to that would be like Ankalaev is, you know, he is low volume, and we have seen guys play the outside game on Ankalaev before and get away with it. I think I think that's in play for Rakic. I think that is the path. The concern for me, but I also think there's more wrestling upside on the Ankalaev side of things here. I don't really know what Rakic's takedown D is like. I think he's only been shot on by one opponent who went 2 for 14, but it was a pretty low level fight. So I don't really know. I mean, I think Ankalaev's the best light heavyweight in the world by a fair margin. I feel like, I think Rakic can win this fight, but to me, doesn't it feel like a square dog to you? Like everybody's betting him and the line is going towards Ankalaev, you know? Yeah. Like the market is screaming, this is a trap, you know? Like the Star Wars gif, you know? It's screaming that in the next two fights too, by the way.
But we will be taking a dog shot in one of those too. Maybe both.
I don't think I will be.
I will be.
Okay. All right. Maybe I might. Actually, if it's the one I'm thinking of, I might, just because I kind of have to. But
it is the one you're thinking of, I think.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really made a good case for Ankalaev minus 385. I just feel like this is pretty trappy though, and I think Ankalaev is a bit better everywhere, and I just don't think Alex hits that hard. And I think that's kind of the problem. Is he's not a super high volume striker himself. Like Jan was kind of piecing Alex up on the feet. I don't think Alex is going to be able to grapple him. And yeah, I just think he's kind of outclassed here a bit. But, you know, I'll root for everybody who's betting on Alex here. I just don't really want to be involved.
I think what is interesting though from the Rakic side though, like we talked about, this could be a pretty boring fight, could be pretty tepid, low volume. Why not not necessarily end split, but just picking Rakic by split or
Ank by split?
yep.
What is
So
split?
those are both of those. So Rakic by split is 18-1. And Ank by split is 5-1. And just fight to go to fight to go right. Ends by split's 4-1. Yeah.
Fuck that too. Rakic by split at 18-1 is kind of
Yeah, that's what
What's
I'm saying.
his decision in general? I don't think he's gonna finish Ank.
No, it is 650.
I don't think that's bad. That actually kind of intrigues me a bit.
That 18-1 intrigues me. Which I know I get it, to split.
Yeah,
stuff.
but I feel like if you're gonna play the split, you gotta play the decision prop too.
You gotta play some of it.
You're gonna be fucking sick if you play split and he wins a unanimous decision, where it's like
just wrestles him in the back half or something.
Yeah,
something
that's what I mean. It's like you're gonna be like it's gonna be the Job from what's it called? What's the show? The Jason Bateman show way back in the day. You have Arrested Development. That's just like I've made a huge mistake. Like while you're watching the fight come down, as Rakic dominates on the back end.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I get the love for Rakic. I just kind of think he is on a different level. So,
I'm curious to see what they open like the significant strikes for this fight specifically.
Yeah, same. It's gonna be
an
low.
Intriguing one.
It's gonna be pretty low, I think, like 40s, 50s.
50s
I like
probably.
over though. Honestly, I like the fight to go long. It's pretty. It's actually pretty.
GTD's fine. -160.
Yeah,
I like it.
GTD's
I played
not
it.
bad. I kind of like that too. Moving on though, Khamzat Chimaev probably cross fingers makes his return to the cage. He's taking on Robert Whittaker. Current price: Chimaev -240. The comeback on Whittaker +205. What do you think, your legs?
This was the one I was talking about. This is an easy Rob bet. +215.
Really
1 unit on Rob. I mean, this line is basically predicating that Khamzat's finishing him early in the fight. He's just going to hoss him around with his physicality, and it's possible he could. But I mean, 25 minutes against one of the best middleweights we've ever seen, one of the best anti-wrestlers we've ever seen. Yeah, give me Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. My only question is like, should he just wait and play it live? Because I do really.
I agree with that too, and playing it live maybe after the first round is fine too. I'm fine taking.
The truth is, Rob could win the first round, and then you're like,
right.
Fuck. Like we had this literally. We had this conversation about Royval a couple weeks ago,
and the reason I took Ikram too. Well, Ikram. Well, he's beating Ikram. I guess he finished.
But Ikram, I thought he was going to pump him from the jump. To be honest, I'm less confident here, and I do have some like pretty major concerns about where Rob is in his career. I feel like I've been saying this since we started the podcast in 2020, but. Like literally, you
just got to believe in Bobby Knuckles.
I mean, I love Rob, and the funny thing is, on paper, I think he's probably the toughest test in some respects Chimaev has had because he's got great cardio. The speed is going to be there all fight. Like the Usman fight with Chimaev, Usman had a lot of ability in that fight, but he was tired. It was on 8 days' notice, and he was tired as shit. When he
up a weight class
by round 2, up a weight class. Rob's not going to be tired in round 2 if Khamzat's slowing down. He's going to be pumping a jab in his face like very, very easily. But I do think Khamzat's is very likely to have a lot of success early in this fight. I think he's a different kind of physical specimen. I really, really was bothered by the way Rob looked when Dricus got on top of him, especially because that Dricus, whenever he tried to get up, Dricus would kind of just tease a front choke or a Darce. And he'd immediately just go back down to his back. And that worries me because, Rob is going to be throwing Khamzat's going to be throwing a ferocious amount of ground and pound at Rob on bottom. I also feel like I shouldn't even say non-zero, a reasonable chance Khamzat can just knock him out standing. Khamzat seems pretty durable. Rob's durability. I mean, that's the one thing I think we can agree on. His durability is not there anymore. It's just not.
And another thing, too, that I like in this fight, and I might end up playing it also, the under 2.5 rounds is like -125, -130.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's actually decent. I'm thinking it's like maybe I'm wrong and Rob wins the first round, but if I get to play Rob -185 in the middle of round 2 with a tired Khamzat, I'm fine with that, as opposed to
That's
playing
fair.
in plus 200 and Hamzat comes out there and just skull fucks him in the first like minute and a half of the fight,
Yep.
that's okay with me. So I don't know. I hear the logic for it. I think on paper, I mean, Rob's obviously the better striker by a lot. He's much better defensively by a lot. He's much faster, but Hamzat's got a huge
cardio.
much better cardio. But Hamzat does have a big wrestling edge, and Hamzat is probably one of the most lethal first-round fighters in history. So,
Jordan,
I don't know.
Are you going to shit on him?
I do kind of feel like, though, it's like, how high can you really put Hamzat finishing Rob in the first round at? Can you put it above like
John,
30?
This is what we talked about last week with Pereira. Michelle.
You're right.
How highly could you price that early finish?
Yeah, but in last week we had the wrestler, though. I like that. That is like we had the car. Like that. That was.
I know.
So, I do. I am thinking about that though, because it's like I know he's finished like 90% of his fights in the first round, but at some point that doesn't come, and we haven't
But not
really
the step ups, not the two step ups. Usman and Burns.
No, and both of them aren't middleweights. I mean, Usman fought him at middleweight, but he's 170
And
pounder.
technically, Rob isn't either, but that was a long time ago when he did move up.
I mean, Rob's been middleweight for a while, though.
Right.
He won the title there, so
yeah. Got to give him some credit there.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'll probably wait for live, but we'll see. I'll tweet it out Saturday morning, see what I got. Now we get to the people's main event, the main event. Ilia Topuria taking on Max Holloway, probably one of the most anticipated fights of the year. Current price, Topuria minus 235. The comeback on Holloway plus 200. Honestly, I feel like this is a trap. That's how it feels to me. And
it feels like the Rakic fight.
Unlike the Rakic fight, though, I actually have, I think, some real cases to make for the Topuria side here on why the line is fine.
Yeah.
Surface level, I agree when it's like we're talking about, oh, how can Max be this wide a dog, right? It's like he's got better volume. If it goes 25, he should probably outland Ilia. I do agree with that.
Yeah. Probably has better cardio, too.
Definitely has better cardio. Not even a question, in my opinion.
Yep.
But with that being said, I mean, look, Max is one of the best featherweights ever, and he's not that old. But the truth is, the dude's taken a ton of damage in his career. And I have a couple big concerns here. The first is, I mean, I know everybody remembers the spectacular Gaethje finish, but I mean, I don't know. I didn't think he looked like peak Max in that fight. The first two rounds, he mostly point fought with him. Gaethje just not too suited for that. Then Gaethje came out brawling, and the fight got really competitive in 3 and 4. And then obviously he knocked him out and hit a great round 5, hurt him early, and then knocked him out at the end of it. But even going before that, the Arnold Allen fight, I bet Max big against Arnold Allen, and that was a lot sweatier than I expected it to be. Like, peak Max Holloway is not having a somewhat close decision with Arnold Allen. He's just not. You go back before that, Yair Rodriguez fight, minus 900, and probably the easiest stylistic matchup for him in the division. And he's basically needing to win the last 2 rounds to win the fight. Pretty concerning. You go back to the last Volk fight. Volk probably the best featherweight ever, but Volk absolutely pieced him up. The point that I'm making is I think Max is still a very, very, very good talent, but I think he's pretty clearly not the talent that he was, when he was champion. I think he's pretty obviously starting to, decline a little bit. And then you have Ilia Topuria here who, look, I think Ilia is excellent, but I think he also has his issues. I thought Volk was, obviously he knocked Volk out. Volk was dealing with him pretty well, though, prior to the knockout, I felt. But I think that was Volk's game, that kind of outside defense first, jab and move and kick type game was a lot more suited for dealing with Ilia than, Max's game. Like, can Max do that for 25? Maybe, but I'm not sure. Topuria, fun fact, has a higher knockdown rate than Derek Lewis at distance in his career. Fucking insane. Dude, the dude throws fucking different, man. He hits fucking different. He's a serious black belt. He's a pretty good wrestler. I look at this and I'm like, yes, Max is the better striker. He's got better cardio. He should throw more volume. The thing is, Max is going to scrap with this guy, number one. Like, we see it every fight. And Max gets hit every fight, and How did he lose to Dustin Poirier? Big moments where he was getting wobbled all over the cage. And I would be, when I think about this fight, it would surprise me if Topuria didn't have 2 to 3 pretty big moments in the fight. I think that happens a lot more often than not. Will he finish him? I don't know. I think that's hard to predict for a guy who's never been knocked down, but I do expect him to have a couple huge moments over the course of the fight. I think the leg kicks are going to be there. We've seen them bother Max before, and Topuria throws pretty hard calf kicks. And then on top of that, everybody talks about Max's takedown defense and his get-up game off bottom. Dude, this guy hasn't fought like any elite grapplers. The closest thing is Brian Ortega. But Ortega one of the times Ortega took him down, he gave his back up right away, and Ortega just kind of got too aggressive and slipped off the back. Ilya's a really good grappler and a really good grappler on top. And I don't expect Ilya to come out and shoot 20 takedowns, but I do think he's going to attempt a couple and probably get a couple here. And Max has not had a grappler of Ilya Topuria on top of him before. So I just think, plus Ilya's younger and improving. So I think the upside on Topuria's side is pretty high in this fight. The upside on the Max side is too, right? If I'm wrong and Topuria can't have moments, Max is going to run him.
Or can't get the grappling going. Yeah.
Yeah. Max will run him in that case. But I just think there's so many variables that point to Topuria here that I'm pretty okay with passing it. I'm not going to lay Ilya minus 235. The downside, I'll put it this way. The money line on Ilya, the downside is way too high to even consider laying, but I do understand why it's priced the way it is. I'm not very tempted by Max. I guess my official prediction, would be Topuria by decision, or knockout maybe, but decision, I think. I don't think he's going to knock Max out. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would lean decision as well. But no, to your points exactly, though. I think in this fight, he's probably going to have 2 to 3 big moments. And in the wrestling, I think he probably can land 2 to 3 takedowns here and get some meaningful control on Max. I to your point, I liked Volk way better in that type of matchup.
Me too. His game, he's just much more defensively sound than Max is, honestly.
He is.
Yep. It's a shame he took that fight off being KO'd 3 months earlier. They really should have. He deserved better from the UFC than that, in my opinion. But
yeah, because now I feel like there's the cloud around Volk now. He's washed. He's old. He's getting up there. He doesn't really want to fight anymore.
They should still give him the rematch. He should get Ilya next. That's crazy. I think it's crazy that they're not giving him the rematch now, to be honest with you. But maybe Volk wants the time off. I don't know.
I have no idea.
But yeah, so you lean Ilya as well.
Yeah.
I'm not betting it. I have I think it's crazy to lay the price.
I would play Max decision if I was going to lean that side. Maybe that's just a square take on that side.
I kind of like
it's
GTD
4-1.
I kind of like this fight to go in. I actually kind of like Max decision. That is actually an interesting way to play it. I like GTD in general in this fight. To be honest with you, I think
there's going to be a lot of strikes thrown.
There will be. But Ilya might swing at air a lot. I think he probably will, but he'll land a bit. But yeah, I'm good passing it. I don't need to be involved with this. Cool card next week. It's kind of a weird fight night, but I think there's a couple really, really good spots on it. I've been looking at it a bit. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Good luck on your bets this weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Peace.